All right, everybody. I don't know if we're going to get video. I'm not sure I am quite that brave today after only getting back in just now. So I want to get right to the meat of things for everybody. So what I'm going to have everybody do is go over to menti.com. Let me know. Can anybody confirm for me that you can see my screen?
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Okay. I did see a kind of a head bob. Yes, I can see your screen. So what you're going to do in here is just log on to menti.com. I'm going to have you use the code 30542337. This is going to be a very interactive session. So I need you all to come in here while I'm introducing myself. I'm hoping you're all going to come and log in and use this interactive feature. So I feel like at the midpoint of a conference, we've only got about 2 hours left till we get to the closeout keynotes there. We want to have a bit of a discussion, and I want this to be a very practical time for us. So hopefully you're all coming in so we can have a little bit of a discussion here. While you're all joining up, I'm going to tell you a little story. So I'm DB, and I get the pleasure of leading the open source office for Optum, which is part of the United Health Group family. Optum is our technology division. So I get the honor of working with 30,000 engineers and data scientists and technologists, and it's an amazing experience. And I myself have a wide variety of technological experience. But 1 year ago, I knew nothing about open source other than it was a vibrant community of people that worked together to do some of their life's best work in the technology space. But I applied for this role in Optum where I could build communities and support technologists, and that's something I absolutely love to do. So let me tell you a little bit about what I've learned in the past year about getting over this one barrier I think that exists in the community, which is that some of us feel like we can't contribute. And there are a lot of reasons for that. And I've done a lot of reading in the literature. And let me tell you that hopefully by the end of the session, if you are a person who does not feel like you can contribute to open source, it is my job right now to show you that you can. And if I don't do my job well and you still feel like at the end of the session you can't contribute, I'm making a pledge to you that you can reach out to me at dbabjack@optum.com, and I will schedule one-on-one time with you, and we will sit together until you can get to your first contribution. So that's my commitment to you and my commitment to all things open. And so we begin. So hopefully a lot of you are in here now. So what I'm going to have you start doing, by the way, you can always, I believe you can record questions in here as well. What I'm going to have you do is answer this question. Which experience style best describes you and your open source journey? Are you just getting started? Are you leading an open source organization? Maybe you work at a company that uses open source. So, you might know you use open source if the term log or the package log4j, program log4j, rings a bell for you, right? Maybe you've used GIMP instead of Photoshop. Maybe you have been out there and you've done at least one PR, right? So good. You've got a pull request out there, whether it was accepted or not, doesn't matter. But I'm looking, so I've got a little bit of dots coming up on the screen. So most of us are just exploring today, which is good. Now let's move forward. That'll help me a little bit as we go along. So if the name of this talk sounds familiar, it might echo some other thematic literature out there and websites called Open Source For Everyone. So there's the book, and I've capitalized that on purpose, by Erlen Safi-Hagen, and I hope I didn't mispronounce that, but this is if you haven't had a read, these are really good resources. Things that I want to kind of highlight for you is that open source is not just engineering code. It's not just ML code. There's even this great article here that I'm sharing to say that open source can be literal cookbooks, even though the term cookbook is often used inside the community. This Architect magazine actually talks about how the design and the study of architecture as an architecture community, when open source, leads to better house design. The basic tenet of open source for everyone is that moving any field forward where the share of common ideas, common goals and ideology done well accomplishes faster scaling of technology product than doing it independently alone. And for those of you who are new to the open source community, we're trying to avoid one of the biggest, I think, pitfalls. And as a corporate executive, this is one of the things that keeps me up at night, where lots of people are developing the same solution separately. That's wasted time, it's wasted effort, and there's a range of production results. Sometimes you get good results, sometimes you get mediocre results, sometimes the result just doesn't work. But done together, it will do a right shift and move the outcomes more often toward the expert level or the best outcome possible if we design together, if we build together. And basically, that's what these 3 resources will do for you. So if you want to have a look at why open source is for everyone, whether that's architecture, enterprise architecture, engineering, machine learning, these resources will get you up to speed if you're just getting your feet wet in the open source space. But that's not what we're here to do. But for a moment, believe me, right? So I mentioned a couple of things, and I'll keep talking. What I want you to do is select one word, and you can pick up to 3, but just make sure each word is a single word. We're going to do a live word cloud. Tell me why open source is good for everybody. Now I'll start to mention a couple. You can pick your favorite, but maybe you already have an idea if you've done open source before. But sharing, collaboration, elevation, all of these are results of good open source. Streamlining. Good, got some words coming in. Community, yeah, the power of a community can be phenomenally exceptional here. Looks like collaboration is rising up. Now, for those of you who aren't data analytics folks, and I'll tell you a little more about me, I actually come from psychology and neuroscience, but I have a very large portion of my career where I spent in data analytics and data science. The power of collaboration is absolutely amazing. It's phenomenal. I think we've heard a lot of talks today about what the barriers to collaboration might be, and we'll touch on a couple of those here. But those of you who have built things in a collaborative environment before will know that the good outweighs the bad. You get exposure to some of the, and I don't want to steal the win from some of our later slides, but I absolutely love this. Good. And let's move to the next. So welcome. We're going to talk about open source by everyone. I hope there is somebody on this call who has not done a PR before. I really do. I'm going to do what I'm going to consider one of my very first content PRs live in this session for you, to really prove that open source can be by everybody, because I am not your traditional engineer coder. And I do run an organization for open source at a Fortune 5 organization. So it really can be done by everyone. There's a role for everybody. All right. If you're in technology, if you're here, you should contribute to open source because I'm going to let you pick a couple. I want you to pick a reason that can justify why you're going to contribute to open source here. So a lot of these philosophies are the main reasons we contribute to open source. And I also want you to be really honest with yourself. I'm assuming if you're here, you're interested in contributing to open source, right? You're here at Open Source, All Things Open 101. This is basically the where we get started in our journey, if you're curious. There is a category here that says no thank you. It's okay to pick that. It's okay to be honest and say, look, I'm not interested in contributing to open source. I might use it, I might like it, but that's just not for me. And that's okay. So if that's your brand, if that's what you want to stick with, own it. That's all right, right? There's a space for you in the technological community. Okay, good. So a little bit of reciprocity, a little bit of reducing technical debt, one of my favorites, a little bit of elevating quality. You can get access to some of the top tier technologists through open source in a way that you will climb through your career to get if you don't take this opportunity. Trust me. And this is probably one of the best ways to improve your skill set. So I love where all the votes are coming in. Wonderful. All right, so reasons we as a technological community, I like to say technologists. I think some people use the term developers, but I like to say that I think technologist is a more inclusive term, right? Why we love open source. It builds a sense of community, which is absolutely imperative. We learn from one another. We get to kind of have that grassroots element. We get to build collectively. Another reason that we love open source is it's a way for us, for our companies, to contribute back. So like I said, I work for Optum, and we love that it gives us an opportunity to contribute to the community in a very meaningful way. It's good for your career development. For those of you who are just getting started on your open source journey, you will find eager and willing mentors in this community. You will find one skill leading into the development of another. Usually it isn't the case that there's only one language, so you can often get in on one language, develop in another language. You can try your hat at a lot of different things throughout this. You also network extensively within the open source community. One of my favorites, why do we love open source? This is one of my favorites. It's something I'm guilty of not doing enough. But it is, you can build your brand in your personal portfolio. I love, as a hiring manager, when a resume comes across my desk and I get to see their open source projects. Even better if they sent me a PDF, so all I have to do is click on it, or put an RF code in there, so all I have to do is scan it on my phone. And I want to go to that GitHub repo and see the documentation. Even better, because I tend to be more of a holistic product person. I like it when I get to go to the demo site that goes with that technology that was developed and see this passion project that somebody poured their heart and soul into. That speaks volumes to me as a hiring manager. And this portfolio that you build in the open source community can do one thing that no company will ever do for you. This portfolio will follow you job to job to job to job, into retirement and beyond, right? To infinity and beyond, if you will. Your portfolio that you build open source is yours. And it will follow you, which is absolutely great, right? I think that no matter where you are and what company you're with, you should have a passion project or two that you're always working on. And I give my team time to work on those, and something that we call Flex Fridays. Feedback from the top 1%. I'm a professor as well, and I can tell you that the most talented people in a community are typically very burdened. They're often leading, they're building, but in open source, they are the maintainers of these repos, and they will give time to people who want to contribute to and help them grow their community. So you can get feedback not just from that maintainer, but also the top developers on every project just by signing up and contributing to that project. All you have to do is reach out. I just attended 2 other talks in this track today where people were saying, you know, all you have to do is reach out to the maintainer and say, how can I help? And it's true. That's all you have to do. Almost every single time the maintainer will say, yes, I have so many needs. Here's my wish list of 50 things I haven't gotten to yet. Compensation. So sometimes you can, depending on what you build, you can receive direct sponsorship, and GitHub enables that. I know we have a $50,000 giving program that we use at Optum, and I give an award with my team once a month. Last month, we're getting ready to put in the donation for last month's nomination to Free Speech, a fantastic project. And you can actually get direct compensation. I think, if you listen to some of my other talks, that shouldn't be your motive, because I think it's rarer. But sometimes you can actually use your work time as well. So like I said, I give my team time on Fridays to engage in open source work, as do many of the other functions in our organization, where they're actually getting paid to commit free code or free open source, which is fantastic. So technologists as a community, I think, have given enough evidence in this to show that we really love open source for many reasons, and it's great for everyone. So now let's get to the do we think we can do it portion of the talk. So this is going to be an iterative portion of the talk that we're going to run through. I need you to tell me if you can do it or you can't do it yet. Okay, right? I made a promise at the beginning of the session. If you're still in the but I can't do it block by the end of this talk, you and I get to meet one-on-one. I will meet you one-on-one regardless. But can you do it? Just waiting for the votes to come in. It's okay to say I can't do it because my job here is to challenge you, right? And find a way for you to do it. This is an interactive presentation. Okay, at least one person can't do it. Yay! I'm happy. I'm happy about this. Anybody else can't do it? Maybe things will change as we go through, but I'm pretty excited. All right, got some questions coming in. Let me see if I can see the questions. Yeah, what is that cool looking graphic on my mentee page? Can you tell us the story about it? So Beeps is Babjack Enterprise Enablement Platform Services, which is our logo for the Open Source Program Office. And he will be our branded mascot on all material coming out of our office. And he was recently designed by Tyler Duvall and some folks at Optum. I'm pretty excited about him. All right. Let's see, I'm going to mark that one as answered. What about non-coding open source contributions? I am so glad you asked that because we're really going to heavily focus on there. So let me turn to that next as we move forward. All right. One of you isn't contributing to open source because they don't know how. Maybe the other one, maybe some of you do think you contribute to open source, but you haven't started yet. So here, tell me what's holding you back, right? So I have pored over the literature, I've pored over the comments, I've read Stack Overflow, I've listened to people, I've had one-on-ones, and I've sat and listened. And these are some of the things that come up. What is stopping you from contributing to open source in the last year? I know there's more people out there, so let's get some votes in, okay? Good, let's be honest. This is a completely anonymous platform. Mentee.com. So I'm not going to reach out to you and say, okay, why are you afraid of being judged or not accepted? A lot of the talks today covered that. It's a realistic fear, right? You're going to put your coding skills out there, or you're going to put non-coding skills out there because that's where we're going to head. Okay, I don't know how to get started. I'm afraid of being judged. Nobody said I don't have time to contribute, which is the #1 complaint I get in my organization. There we go. All right, so let's cover some of these then, okay? And we'll do some of them quickly. All right, getting started because we had a little bit of a delay. Your first no code pull request. All right, like I said, I promised to do this live, right? Here's a no code pull request, and it's still a useful pull request. So what I did is I logged into GitHub. So if you don't know how to do that, just Google up in YouTube or GitHub how to create a GitHub account. They're free, right? All you gotta do is hook them up a little bit. So this is the inside of my GitHub account, and there's a little search bar up here. And I said, okay, what is it that DB knows how to do? Remember, I'm a low code kind of person. I do know a couple of programming languages. I'm not going to share what they are, but it's not Java, right? It's not the most common engineering languages. Okay, well, I know machine learning and healthcare, and I know a lot of machine learning and healthcare because I got to run this amazing team. So I searched right up here next to the GitHub icon, ML healthcare, and which brought me to this. And for the purposes of this presentation and preparing for you today, I said I'm going to take the first result and find a way to contribute to it. So the first result here with 400 stars, that's often how things are organized by the stars, meaning 400 people liked this. There's a curated list of ML NLP resources for healthcare. Not everything in GitHub is going to be code. So I came into this and I read it and I said, okay, looks like he's compiling some resources on machine learning that's relevant to healthcare. Oh, that's something I know about. I work for a healthcare technology company. So I looked at this. If you scroll all the way down, he starts talking about some data sets. are down here. And I was like, and I looked at this and I said, oh, Mimic isn't listed. Anybody know what Mimic is? Mimic is a data set that is developed out of MIT for intensive care patients. And it's one of the best data sets out there for machine learning if you want to get into the medical field and kind of understand what you can do from a intensive care perspective. So you want to predict readmission, right, on the back of a patient being in the hospital. You can do that with Mimic. So what I did, what you do here is you get into, there we go. Oh, I skipped ahead. I want to adjust this README. And then the quickest way to do that is to click on the README Markdown. So all you do is click on that, which is this tab right here. And then you want to scroll over to this pencil, right? I'm gonna hit the pencil. And I'm gonna make this PR live and in real time. Hopefully it will let me do it. It's being a little funky. Let me, oh, I already have one open. Okay. So I scrolled down to other and multiple categories because that was the area of the README where he started putting in data sets, right? So he's got his 3 hashtags for his data set topic. And then I want to do this, exactly what I see. So a lot of Markdown, if you're not familiar with Markdown, another good way to get started is to do some Markdown tutorials, Markdown trainings. Super simple for the most part. Don't tell my team I said that because I'm always asking them what I did wrong. But here's what I'm going to do. I went and made a little description for Mimic. Found the website that you would need to go to get started with Mimic. And I'm just going to follow the format that I see. They're double spacing, putting everything in just like this. I don't want this underlined. So let me just see if I can, oh, it just came in underlined. Not sure why it did. Think it should be okay still. We're going to see. Anybody can stop me if they think. And then I'm going to say add Mimic data set to others. And I was told this morning in my training session with one of my mentors, thank you, Ben Woodring, that the more specific you are in your proposed changes, the more likely they are to accept your PR. Let's do that. Request to add Mimic key healthcare data set. And then I'm going to propose that change. Let's make sure it's spinning on me. It's always a risk to do these things live, right? And then it says, okay, you're going to commit this in the head repository Babjack. That's my username, healthcare_ML. And this is patch 2, because I actually had done a test this morning to make sure that it worked. That was patch 1 and I killed it. So here I'm going to then, if this looks okay to me, right, this is actually what I'm asking. I'm going to create this pull request. And I should be good. Now that's it. I don't have anything left to do. The rest of this is up to now the maintainer. So this sends a message to the maintainer, and that makes me done. That's my first one. So all I did was go look at a repo and say, hey, is it missing any information? That's a no code pull request. There's a lot of other variants to how you can do that. I know I heard a lot today about good first issues. So I wanted to show you another example of how you can kind of do a good first issue. So if we come back out to GitHub main, it should take me a second. I wanted to get to topics. I think this is how I got there last time, which is probably not the right way to get there, but this is one way I've gotten there. So looking for one. I had a good example of one earlier. Oh, this is actually the Mimic code repository on GitHub. So one of the reasons I really wanted to make sure that Mimic was there was so that we could search for something that's relevant back to GitHub. So Mimic actually pushes its code out through GitHub as well. All right. So one other way to get started, I think we mentioned earlier, is to search for the topic good first issue. So if you want to go through ML healthcare like I did, or find out whatever topic it is you're interested in, you can then search among those projects for the topic good first issue, which is usually something easier to get started with. The other thing I recommend is reaching out to the maintainer. And I am going to go over a lot of more no-code ways to get started, but we're going to do a poll real quick. Okay, in light of what I've covered so far, can you give me a yes or a no as to whether or not you think you can commit a pull request to an open source project? Can you do what I just did? Can you find a typo? Can you help improve the documentation? I'm going to tell you a secret. This is just between me and you. Engineers and data scientists are not always the best communicators. So if you think you can interpret what's happening and provide more polish, that's always welcome. Okay, good. We're going to keep going with this. Okay, I'm new or old to the field. A couple people said that. If you're new to the field, we're ready and we already know how to support you, because the entire open source community, as far as I've seen it, is willing to help you. So I already showed you how you could do a no code pull request, and that's a great way to get started. But I understand your trepidation, because to some extent, coming into an already existing party, I've heard this analogy before, a repo might be managed by a party, people who already know each other, who are standing around with a cocktail in hand, and you have to come and have a conversation with these folks. I'm providing a resource for you here that GitHub puts out on how to do your first contribution. And in it, it says, don't come to a party where everybody's talking about coding and you start talking about llamas. Don't talk about llamas, right? So basically we're saying there's some homework you often have to do at the beginning of a project. You find a project, you look and see, there are things you look for. Has it recently had any code updates made to it? Does it look like it has an active maintainer? Does it look interesting to you? Something you're passionate about, something you're going to make time for? If so, go reach out to the maintainer. Otherwise, you can also read the code of contribution, and then you can see how the maintainer has elicited how they want to actually engage. But if you're new to the field, working on a project can help you gain more skills than any other training, quite honestly. So I've developed universities that train technical individuals. I still teach technical class. I can teach functional magnetic resonance imaging. And this is still one of my preferred methods for people learning how to get into their field, because there'll be a community of people to rally around you and help you through. Okay. If you're old to the field, same rules apply, right? It's okay to say, hey, I've been doing Python for 10 years. I don't know any Java, for example, or the last time I did Java, I was in college, right? And they'll still say, hey, there's a way for you to get started. All right, in light of what we've covered, if you've already said yes, you still have to say yes. Can you commit a pull request to an open source project? And I know I have some non-technical people here, because I know there's even people from my team who are non-technical, my community leaders. So I'm hoping, they said, oh yeah, I can go in there and do that now. All right, how are we doing? We got any no's? Can you get in there and commit a pull request to an open source project? Everybody said yes. We'll keep going. I'm afraid of being judged or not accepted. So all we have to say about this is that it's a community like any other, except I would say in this community, we're very careful to make sure that we have code of conduct. And that code of conduct is something that the maintainers and the contributors are governed by. All right, so we're going to take a quick poll. In light of what we've covered so far, can you commit? So we've already got one no. Keep them coming, because then we're going to switch topics. It's like walking up to a group at a party, right? If you have a good icebreaker, if you have an idea, it's going to be pretty seamless for you to get started. But I'm going to acknowledge as a professor of psychology that it can be difficult, right? To say, hey, I want to get started, or I have work I need to do in this area. So there are guides that I will provide at the end of this talk. Should you want, just reach out to me, dbabjack@optum.com, to help you over that hump. And I think that one is more of a psychological difficulty than a lot of the technological issues. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, we already covered this one. One second. Okay, I don't have time to contribute. Nobody said that in this one, but I'm going to quickly gloss over this. You can use your volunteer time as open source time. So if your company sponsors that, you can do that. You can build open source into your CI/CD pipeline, meaning part of your continuous integration and continuous delivery approach. You can discuss this with your managers and leaders. Very rarely will you have a manager say, nope, that's not a good idea. And leaders, I give another talk that you can look out for, but is the case for flex time. So because open source is so integral in our communities, getting people to contribute to open source is a win-win for us. If you can find 4 hours in the week that you will pin for your employees, those 4 hours are probably 4 of the best spent hours of their week, because they're going to learn new skills and learn how to develop faster. They're going to learn how to reuse code. They're going to learn of technologies they can use instead of developing new. In our company, we recently had a particular package that was used, and there was a break, and I'm not going to name what it is, but I will say that it was used 60,000 times in our organization. An open source package was used, and that the fix came in within 72 hours of the process break. But now those 60,000 instances means that 60,000 times our employees knew how to use an open source package that was available instead of buying it, which is absolutely phenomenal. So it makes sense for managers to find time for their employees to do that. And if you don't have a good structure, I will help you. I have lots of proposed structures that help people and managers find more time for open source. I know we only have, I think, 5 minutes left in this talk, but I want to address that I don't have the needed skills in these 5 minutes. And then after this one, we'll take our final poll and open it up to questions. If you're a no, I really want you to pay attention, okay? Read through this list quickly, skim it, right? So basically, I have thought of how you can contribute to open source across the continuum of getting started all the way to expert. Underneath each of these, and this is a handout I will provide to All Things Open that they can distribute. And you can also reach out to me directly, dbabjack@optum.com. And there are 4 links in here that are definitive guides to how to get started on open source. But I've grouped things into community support, events, contributing to open source in the way you would technically think about it, and advocacy. In the beginning of your career, in the beginning of your technological journey in a particular field, you can do anything in getting started. You can join a community. You can attend conferences. That's a great way to get started and kind of figure out where you want to go. All Things Open, I highly recommend. I also highly recommend the Open Source Summit hosted by Linux. You can also help me. I host Open Source Friday. So for the first time, we're going to make that a public event in 2022 in October. It's in the Hacktoberthon period. There's also Hacktoberfest. There's Kaggle. Then you can also do some of the contribute to open source by helping with documentation like I showed you today. It's not just finding typos. Sometimes it's restructuring the layout, improving the language, adding to the lists. There are a lot of these lists and meta repositories, if you will. You can also get creative. Technologists, sometimes not the most creative individuals. You can create logos, branding like Tyler and our team did with Beeps. You can create style guides. So we have or even guides for GitHub as you get further involved. Other things you can do, fundraise. Can you help create a fundraiser for a particular project you're passionate about? You can do a designer purse bingo. You could do a regular bingo. You can work with your local chocolate store to sell candy bars, whatever you want. Traditional fundraising routes do support those low truck factor or low lottery factor projects. And then you can promote open source with social media. So you can talk, this is a campaign we're getting ready to roll out in our own organization, but really talking about what you're using and how. So those are all in the beginners area. Can you do open source now? Have you ever sold chocolate, right? Have you ever designed a t-shirt? Can you create a logo? All of those. Then we go up to beginner, intermediate, and expert. By the time you go to the end of this, you can be sitting down with a maintainer, developing a roadmap for future projects or existing projects that you two can kick up. You can be hosting hackathons, techathons, regional meetups. You can host a meetup. You can be speaking on the open source conference circuit. Come join us. It's a great party. You can be hosting events at conferences. Maybe you just want to host a little happy hour. You can do all of these things. But if you look at the contribute open source row there, you can, even in the beginner, there are new things. You can perform user testing. All you have to be able to do then is install a package. You ever installed a package on your machine? Great, you can help with open source because we need to know that it works on Windows and Mac. We need to know that it works on this configuration versus that configuration. We need to do timing tests. There's an entire continuum of how to contribute. You have to pick the thing that is most appetitive to you, the thing that makes you feel most comfortable. Maybe you even then go find the project that you want to do that in. The easiest way to get started is to reach out to that maintainer, read the code of conduct, pick one of these things. There are not maintainers out there who do not want people to help them, that if they are currently accepting public PRs, that is. So with that said, we have 1 minute left. In light of what we've covered so far, can you commit a pull request to an open source project? So we'll let all the votes come in. And there are questions rolling as the votes are coming in. So I think we already answered this one. I often feel like more seasoned OSS contributors gatekeeper require street cred before they accept new contributions. Shouldn't OSS be more well open? It absolutely should. And that is on the person, right? So I think that the ideology in the open source community is shifting to being a place where we are educating, right? So I want and encourage maintainers and seasoned OSS contributors to think of themselves as mentors and leaders of the next generation of technologists. That is the exchange and the payback you get from having people work on your projects all of these years, if you've been maintaining it for years. So if not that, then I challenge you to tell me why. It's probably one of those other problems that we addressed, like I feel like I don't have enough time to do that. And if so, then there's another answer right in this stack. So good. Any other questions from the audience? Okay, there's still one no, which means whoever you are, my no. I expect an email to dbabjack@optum.com, and we're going to sit down and figure out a way to get you over the first hurdle, because getting over the first hurdle is 90% of the problem. Any other questions from the audience? Anything in the chat? I have not been monitoring the chat.
No, there's nothing in the chat yet.
Well, easy enough then. So I would call this one. You're welcome, Santana. So I think it's nice. We started with, I think, 3 no's. We got down to 1 no, and that 1 no and I are going to meet, right? So again, I think that once you do your first, right? I did 1 live for you. It becomes easier to do your second and your third and go further down the pipeline. So it's all about moving from the funnel of beginning to expert, but you can stop wherever you are, right? Wherever you're comfortable. But don't let any of the no's, the reasons for no's that we talked about today, stop you from contributing. They're easy hurdles to get over.
That was a very amazing talk, Didi.
Well, thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was so interactive, and I got to participate as well. And yeah, I'm big on new contributors to open source, so it was an amazing talk. Okay, I think there is one question, although we are out of time, we can just answer this one question. Let me read it out quickly to you. So what tech experience, or Mikal is asking, what tech experience or background is needed to contribute to a PR? Where can a non-tech person find a project to contribute to? So many rely on a coding background. So that's for Mikal.
All right, Michal, I'm happy to sit with you and find that it's often a fit between your desires and your skills. So, I'm like I said, I just started with searching something I know about. I know about healthcare and machine learning. So I went to GitHub and just started in the search box. I recommend trying the same thing for something that so the tech skill you need is the ability to create a GitHub account, the ability to attend a few GitHub trainings, so you can understand how that GitHub mechanism works. You can rewatch this video to watch how to do your first PR, but it was exactly what I showed you. It was like a 5-step process. And then all you need is content knowledge. You need to know something about something that in which there is a project. I will give a talk at a later time where we can talk about creating your first project. And so really I think a documentation skill, the ability to manage multiple web screens and click through a process is the bar, right? Can you click through a process, manage multiple web screens and follow instructions? Because, I do a 2-panel thing. I put the instructions up on the left side of the screen and I follow them on my other screen. If you can do that, you can contribute to open source. It's that simple. I'm not overstating a fact. It is that simple. The more skills you have, the further your contributions go in the community. But open source wants to be that vehicle.
Yeah, thank you so much for answering that. So one last mini question. I just dropped the link, although, but Mikal is also asking what GitHub training you would recommend.
What is the question?
Yeah, what GitHub training you would recommend? I dropped a link to GitHub Learning Lab, which is really very helpful.
Yes, I recommend GitHub Learning Lab. If you go straight, so GitHub has a couple of modules. One of them in the handout that I'm providing, I kind of use the guides that are in the handout that I provide, and GitHub has the majority of them. GitHub, of course, because they own GitHub, have the most beautiful trainings possible. There's about 4 GitHub trainings off of the lab website that I highly recommend. And if you go to it, you can see the pictures on there for them. Then my big recommendation is GitHub has a course called Train the Trainer, or a program called Train the Trainer. I highly recommend that because it allows you to learn GitHub to the point that you can teach somebody else. So if you can do that, you can go, you can do it all. I'm trying to get this all the way back to the beginning to get to those links. I'm going to provide the slides over to All Things Open, and you can just email me again and I can send the slides to you so that you can get all those links.
Yeah, great. One person is asking, how do we access your handout? So you talked about the handouts, rather.
So email me. Yeah, just email me and I will send you the PowerPoint and that I'm using for this, and the handout that has all of the links in it. There's the links that everyone wanted. So the book, Open Source For Everyone, and this opensource.google is a good guide as well.